All right. Good morning, afternoon, or night. If it is very late for you, you should be going to bed. But anyway, it's not too late here. It's a little bit late, but not too bad. So today we're gonna do some practice for the race department GTE race at the Red Bull Ring tomorrow. Also known, as you may have noticed in the title, A1-Ring. It's for a period of time when Formula One used to run here. Or, no, they still run here, actually. They brought it back. But they brought it back under the name of the Red Bull Ring. And, yeah, formerly, I suppose, in its original form, is known as the Österreich Ring, which I believe is... Österreich is German for Austria. So we are in Austria, so it was Austria Ring, basically. So we're driving the Porsche 911 RSR tonight, and for the race tomorrow. And this lovely Rothmans-inspired classic livery. Absolutely stunning livery that Porsche ran was it last year, I think it was. So, pretty cool. Anyway, turn on our telemetry logger. There we go. Green means it's logging. And I am going to turn down the engine tone a little bit so I don't go deaf. So see that. Okay, so you hopefully should be able to hear me over the engine, but I apologize if you can't. So I'm running the AC Fan 911 RSR sound mod. So it makes this car just sound so much better. So already did a little bit of setup development. Turn off the virtual mirror for now. So I was primarily focusing on suspension, but also suspension in the sense of aero as well. So I was able to determine a very long convoluted process, but sort of aero efficiency values for the car. So ride height is in that range right now with the splitter and the diffuser. So one thing that I noticed and in discussion with a friend of mine is that this car really oversteers on, just like that, on the brakes. So I know you can't see my steering wheel. Here, I can do it like that so that you can have a look at that. I usually drive in the dash cam view, but we'll drive like this for now. Basically, what happens is I'm getting a little bit of input lag, I think, there. So I actually have to go out and change that. But yeah, usually drive in the dash cam view because the steering wheel is the steering wheel I have in front of me. So it's kind of, in a way, it's a bit more immersive. Makes a bit more sense somehow as well. Oh, bit of oversteer, but we're okay. So shift up pretty much almost at the limiter with this car. That's the kind of the optimal shift point. So the gear ratios are a little bit weird. So I actually decided to adopt a new approach just as of yesterday, or earlier today rather, of setting up my gearing. So my first gear I use it for the slowest corner, which is turn 2. And then my longest gear, my 6th gear, for the longest straight, and then space the gears evenly in between, but it's kind of tricky to do that. So you'll notice that probably when I go up between 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, kind of really pop through the gears, and then it kind of slows up again, sort of the frequency. There, yeah. So fourth, fifth, and it's sort of, yeah, when I go up to fifth, and then when I go up, it sort of slows down a little bit. So definitely, at the moment I'm actually not running any traction control, that's why I'm getting those massive kickouts out of turn 2. So, oi. So there's definitely a little bit of input lag here. I can notice it. So definitely, it's just the graphics setting. So it's running fine, a good frame rate at the moment, but there's also a value which is very important to pay attention to. I'll show it to you after this next couple laps, called frame time, which basically defines how long it takes for each frame to be rendered to the screen. So ideally you want that as low as possible. Preferably 0 is the ideal, but it's quite impossible considering with different computer hardware to get 0, and also it depends on the game's rendering engine as well. So graphics card, CPU, so a few factors. But yeah, so run smoothly. There's definitely a little bit of a delay between my own inputs and how Assetto Corsa responds. So yeah, so one thing that I noticed from looking at some of the telemetry, which I can show you in a little while after this lap, is that basically the Porsche's front suspension travel is pretty much the same as the rear, which is a little bit, which means that the nose really dives down under braking. Can make it a little bit of a problem. Get this massive oversteer as soon as you go anywhere near the brake pedal. Oi! Hello, oversteer. So we'll go. So we'll end this lap. And go back to the pits. We'll get us. We'll get the telemetry logging. Let's see. Can we get Motec to show up? Okay, it's not there, so we'll have to add it. All right. Oh, name's already in use, so where is it? Oh, sorry. Transition. So you cannot see it, I don't think. Oh, right, no, it's not even, okay, that's strange. Oh no, there you go, it works now. Wasn't working before, strangely. I just messed up. There we go, that's better. So I'm gonna exit out of Assetto Corsa, revert my graphic settings as well, while we have a look at some telemetry. Let's see, video. Yeah, so I have a preset that I've set up. So let's look at the numbers and graphs. This is where, if you want to go quick in any racing sim, you really should use telemetry. It can really help with determining if you're going the right way about things or not. So yeah, there we go. Graphs. So this is my damper histograms. So yeah, like I was chatting about before, if we look at the travel, you can see it vary quite a bit. Or rather that the front and rear travel is pretty much the same. So I'm going to do a little bit of experimentation with the travel, especially like limiting the front travel. Before we do that, actually, let's try and get our dampers reasonable. Or balanced, rather. So... so do we need a decrease front rebound, I think? Yeah, so we'll decrease front rebound a little bit. And how much? Say 3 clicks probably will be enough. We hide modec. Now we're back in Assetto Corsa. So, we'll load that. So we've decreased the rebound by 3. And there we go, that's much better. So there's sort of like a, say, a 1-to-1 kind of relationship between the two. So now they've decreased the rebound. Hopefully it will match up with the bump a bit with the histograms. But yeah, it will also affect how the car feels coming out of corners, so the front won't raise up as quick, I believe, so with a lower rebound. So should eliminate some of that exit oversteer, or exit understeer rather. Like, go too much and then you get exit oversteer. But yeah, that's more best way I can sort of describe excuse me, best way I can sort of describe how to figure out, you know, how to visualize everything. Front of the car is very much, it has the primary influence on the behavior of the car on entry into corners, whereas the rear of the car is the primary area that you should focus on at the exit of corners when you go on the throttle. And there is some overlap between the two sides of the car, of course, and then you also have the roll bars in the middle. So the roll bars is the midpoint. That's where sort of they come into play and have maybe a greater influence on the car's behavior in long sweeping corners, which there are a few here at Red Bull Ring. So once we get our dampers matched, the next plan then is starting to play with the front travel. Actually also even the aero settings themselves. Oh. So we'll do one more lap here, and then have a look if we went the right way with the dampers or we went the wrong way. Hopefully the right way. At least logically, should be the right way. Really don't like that last corner. Very awkward. Alright, so hopefully that's enough information for our little telemetry. So we'll see here. And there we go. So what do the numbers say? Yeah, there we go. So they're numerically matched. So basically, to get an idea of what I'm doing is hopefully there's enough clarity in the stream that you can see the numbers at the top. Show sort of percentage values, percentage of time spent in rebound and bump, but also rebound or high speed rebound and high speed bump. So in my previous run that I just did, or not this one, but the one just before I changed the rebound settings, we had roughly, let's say we had 38% in the rebound, but 32 in the bump. So a lot more time was spent in rebound than in bump. I believe that's how to, or the percentage of time. So it's was a bit off. So it caused that sort of mismatch. But now the problem is as well, though, if you look at the shape. So the shape on the last run is better. The numbers on, or the shape of the previous run is better. And then just from the run that I just done, the shape has gone all wonky. So what I can do then is do the other way, basically, which is stiffen the bump to get it to match better with the rebound. So we'll do that. So this was, I think, 10, was it? I think it was 10. No, it was 11, sorry. So we decreased it by 3. So we'll increase the rebound, or we'll increase the bump by 3. And see how the numbers stack up. And then once the front kind of happy with, and then also looking into the fast damping as well. Then can go into the travel. So kind of like to leave the travel to be the very, very last bit, because it can influence other parts of the car. So I already have some idea of what I want to do with the travel, and we'll try some different aero configurations as well. So at the moment I'm running just the default aero of I think 4 and 7, so 4 at the front, 7 at the rear. So definitely see if we can tweak that, maybe get less aero, which will help for the start-finish straight. Primarily though, the straight after turn 2, or before turn 2 and after turn 2. So those 2 corners would have the less aero, would help a lot, but the last sector here is all about the aero. So you don't want to compromise too much, like go Monza style aero. So opposite to what I did in my last run, where the car wouldn't understeer as much out of corners, now it should understeer, or not just pitch as much braking into corners with the stiffer front bump dampers, which could resolve a little bit that kind of very edgy oversteer on braking into corners. But really limiting the travels where that'll really change that. Oh, a little bit messy there. So definitely, yeah, the car doesn't want to turn in as much into some of the corners with that stiffer front bump dampers. So oh, a bit too late there. It's an awkward corner, that turn 1, especially under braking. Basically, damping is something I've found is that it's because it's a kind of a what you would define as sort of like a micro setting compared to a macro setting when it comes to your wheel rates. It's a very subjective tuning thing, so it has a greater it's kind of this more personal preference how you like your damper set up compared to other settings. So looking at that last run, so the shape looks better than the run when we softened the rebound. Are they matched? Not really matched. So I need to go just a click actually at this point, just a click stiffer, I think, with the bump. Yeah, so we'll go for a click stiffer. And then we'll go with the rear of the car, which in turn is likely to change the front as well, but yeah, kind of chasing your tail a little bit sometimes. Let's kind of get it to a reasonable range. If we go cycle layout, we can also see this is the 4 dampers overlaid with each other. So the red and orange is the front, and the turquoise and magenta color, I guess, way down. So there's a lot less time spent in the rear dampers than the front. Or the majority of the damping is happening at the front, which is usually the case in the front because it's the one that really hits the curves and things. So it's the one that's kind of has priority sometimes. So, like I said, we'll go with a click front stiffer bump. And then see from there. But also, actually, okay, yeah, we'll try that. And then move on to the next bit. So kind of fighting the car a little bit to get it to turn in some of the corners with the stiffer front bump dampers. It's just not as relaxed. Well, it's understeery, which some people might like, but I like a car that's kind of neutral or a little bit of oversteer. Lost about a tenth, just over a tenth in that last lap, or that last corner. Still a PB, which is nice. Very close to the 28s. Be nice to get a 28 before I'm done tonight, but let's see. It's a very sensitive car. That's one thing I've noticed about this RSR. It's very, very delicate. You need to be very, very precise with your driving. Very smooth. Or stuff like that can happen. And kind of, you have to be, it's just kind of, I suppose, the 911 way. You have to be, very, very smooth with your throttle input. Equally, kind of control how the front of the nose lifts under acceleration. So if you accelerate too hard too early, it starts to understeer. So whereas with other cars, you kind of, throttle modulation is good to prevent any kind of crazy oversteer out of corners. With a 911, if you're aggressive with your throttle input, get some really bad understeer, at least in my own experience. Which makes it a very challenging car for me to drive, because I like to get the car to rotate a bit out of corners on the throttle. And 911s don't really work that way, unless you go pretty extreme and have like extremely stiff rear suspension, maybe extremely soft front. Then it kills you. So just trying to find that sweet spot is tricky sometimes. Hopefully our front dampers are balanced, hopefully, after this run. But yeah, we'll have to see. Back into the graphs we go. And what's news? No, not quite. So, well, the shape is a bit better. It's a little bit better. Actually, no, the numbers, yeah. Maybe just that front left's a little bit wonky. The numbers on the front right are, let's say, correct. So basically you want to have the percentages plus or minus 1% between the two sides. So front right's 36.6 on the first flying lap, 35.9 on the bump, 35.8 on the rebound, 36 on the bump, 36.5 on the rebound, 35.5 on the bump. So might just have to stiffen one side of the dampers as opposed to both sides at this point. So yeah, but yeah, I'll probably leave the front dampers as they are for now, because they're kind of, yeah, quite reasonable. Or the front slow dampers. Have a look at our velocities. The velocities aren't actually that bad. There's no major spikes. Some downward spikes, so maybe stiffer fast rebound. perhaps. Yeah, so maybe a click stiffer, fast rebound. What are the numbers like? Yeah, and even that would make sense, because even when you look at the shape, so anything in the gray area is usually your slow damping. Anything outside of that is your fast. So if you look on the left side of the graph there for the front left damper, it's like jaggy, whereas the right side is nice and smooth. In the orange, basically, that's the orange line. And if I look at the velocities, it sort of matches up with that. So the downward spikes are my rebound spikes, whereas the bump, there's one or two here and there, but not really. That can be also driving error, let's say. So could probably go stiffer, the front left rebound, fast rebound. We'll do it symmetrically for now. And yeah, then we'll start working on the rear. So the rear right now needs to be just stiffer, because the shape is just wonky, very wonky, and that's not good. So we need to make the rear a few clicks stiffer overall, then we can start fine-tuning. I think actually numbers wise they are quite balanced, at least for the rear left. But yeah. So yeah, this is pretty much my process. Drive a bit, graphs, drive a bit, telemetry, drive a bit, telemetry, drive a bit. It's a very repetitive process. And if you don't have the patience for it, which I can fully understand, it can get quite monotonous after a while. So we stiffen that by 5, stiffen that by 5 as well, and give this a bash. Wait, sorry. It's just my wheel going nuts when I let it go. So, trying to make sure that AC is full screen, which it is now. So if you're not running in full screen and you're running Windows 10, VSync is automatically enabled. Input lag again. So always, even if you get a little bit of tearing, having sharper inputs is far, far more important than a little bit of screen tearing. At least in the context of sim racing or competitive sim racing, let's say. If you're playing a single player game, or you're just exploring a story or whatever, having VSync on isn't the end of the world. Generally, actually, even in general gaming, unless the tearing is extremely bad, I like to leave VSync off. So now the rear end should be a bit more lively, being a bit stiffer. Which should definitely, the car is rotating a little bit better going into corners. Oh, skating. So what, yeah, you'll notice compared, or what I've personally observed about how I'm driving this car compared to other cars, I'm rarely turning the steering wheel beyond 45 degrees, maybe 60 degrees, just simply because the car is very, very responsive. So, of course, there's ways of lazying it up a little bit by maybe increasing the front toe out if you want to make it a bit more lazy. But it comes at the cost as well that it's harder to correct slides, especially if they're big slides, as far as I understand. But toes a little bit, still haven't fully gotten it, I think. I know what it looks like, but how it affects kind of steering response. Just in my experience, steering response is lazier with more front toe out. So, but you also get massive lock up there. Whoa, whoa, whoa. But in my experience as well, if you're getting a lot of front end scrub, particularly in long sweeping corners like these corners here, putting a bit more front toe out reduces that scrubbing. Oh, Dorifto. I think I'll have to move the brake bias a little bit further back. Not too much, just a little bit, because I'm getting some front locking, particularly in that corner there. So it's making life a little bit awkward, especially in a race situation where I'm trying to brake as late as you can. You want the front right to let you down. on, come 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 on. Yeah, finally. In the 28s. Nice. 28,989, so it's just barely in there, but I'll take that. So hopefully the shape of the rear dampers should be better. So I'll have a look here. So this was just the last run, and then that's the previous run. So yes, the shape is more smooth. And in terms of the front dampers, so we're worried about the front rebound, fast rebound. Probably stiffen it one more click. Yeah, I think so anyway. Then if we do this cycle, so I'll show you actually based on, so from that last run, now you should, so you'll see, yeah, there we go. Can visualize it a bit better. So now the stiffer rear dampers, now they're that bit closer to the front in terms of damping. So that gives you some idea of how it affects things, basically. No, I want it line style. Yeah, so we'll definitely go a bit stiffer again, maybe with the rear dampers. Yeah, I think just a little bit stiffer again. And then see from there. And then we'll kind of go click stiffer again with the front rebound as well. Actually, I want to just check something. So we'll call this V4. I'm just trying to figure out the numerical difference. I know it's not really scientific, but just trying to figure out sort of the numerical difference of the dampers, or the relationship between the fast and the slow. Now the funny thing is, now looking at these numbers, this isn't really too far different from what I had before, or from the default settings. Yeah, this is getting very, very close now to the original settings. So in a way, it kind of makes me think, yeah, why did I touch them? But still, I can sort of learn what's going on a bit with the car. So I just want to check to see the balance between the bump and rebound for the rear. And yeah, so what we went, yeah, so one click stiffer with the rear rebound, then or sort of a smaller gap between the two. I think they're a little bit sort of off in a way. Actually, so 1 sec. Oh, there we go. Sorry. car is a bit, rear end's a little bit more lively again because of the stiffer rear dampers. And it's kind of like back to where we started. Hopefully not. Hopefully we just find that sweet spot where it rotates enough but not too much and doesn't understeer as well. No. One thing I'll say, something I learned from Jackie Stewart, not personally, but from one of the things he said, is when it comes to braking and primarily accelerating out of corners, you want it ideally one singular, like if you go to full travel on the throttle pedal, you don't want to come off again. You don't want to be hesitant, basically. You want to be uncommitted, that's it. So when I sort of feather off the throttle as I'm exiting a corner, that's time lost. Of course, it depends a bit as well on the nature of the corner and the car and a few things, but and also if you're someone who has the Ayrton Senna throttle stabbing technique, it's probably kind of goes out the window, that piece of advice. I'm much more traditional modulator myself, but yeah, there we go. That was a moment of hesitation at the exit, sort of mid-corner. And if I look at the delta, yeah, the delta's going down. And back to look at the telemetry again. Yeah, sure, Joe. I'll if you like, I can post the setup, no problem. So yes, take my setup and then beat me with it. That's what will happen, right? I don't mind. I don't mind. It's only a casual fun race anyway, so I'll just have to cry myself to sleep tomorrow night if that happens. But oh well, what makes that different from any other night? Haha. No, just kidding. Yeah. So graphs. Let's see. Is the shape better? It's kind of better. Not really. That rear left's kind of wonky, especially on one of those laps. So what about the numbers? Are the numbers better matched? Nope, not really. Not really at all. Well, they're matched on the outlap. That doesn't really matter. Wait, I think I went. Did I go the wrong? Yeah, I went the wrong way. Nice. I think I went the wrong way with the dampers. I stiffened the rebound when I should have stiffened the bump, or vice versa. I think that's where I went wrong. So I just want to compare. So it was what, 11 and 9? Was it? I think. Yeah. So yeah, messed that up. So we want the bump stiffer, I think. Either the bump stiffer or the rebound softer. Let's go stiffer bump. Yes. 10. And how are our velocities doing? Yeah, like I was saying, so because I started adjusting the rear dampers, now the front dampers are a little bit funny. So yeah. I think it's probably fair to say that the shape, again, keep chasing the numbers, but the shape can also tell some of the story. See, that always is fun. That's fun, just like drifting it out. But trust me, you don't want to do that. You get your tires screwed, and you lose a ton of time doing that too. But it is fun. It's definitely fun doing that with the car. Now the rear damper, bump damper in particular, a little bit stiffer. The car gets a little bit more lively again. But So definitely should move the brake bias back a little bit. So go back and look again. So you kind of get the idea. Drive a few laps, go back to pits, check telemetry. Drive a few laps, check telemetry, go back to pits, etc. That's pretty much the process. So at the same time, it's also good to try and evaluate how the car feels on a personal level, because the direction you kind of go, especially with dampers, can also be influenced by how you personally feel the car to be. So what might feel sluggish to one person would feel responsive to another, or edgy, and so that it's a subjective thing as well. But there are certain things which are correct. There's a correct approach. So when it comes to damper balance, really they should be quite balanced. The actual stiffness of the dampers is something personal, but in terms of the bump to rebound balance, they should kind of be the same. So it's just so the relative stiffness might change, but the balance really should not. Especially, but that being said, there are some other factors like such as that might influence your. You might say, I'll have a little bit wonky dampers or wonky rebound to maybe maintain aero efficiency a little bit better. So it's kind of depends a bit too. So what I'm gonna do is actually now finally soften. Would that be correct? No. Don't want to soften it. So we'll leave that as it is. And then look at our velocities. So yeah, the rear fast dampers needed a little bit of smoothing, and the front. So we're gonna smoothen them up. We want the fast to be one click stiffer, and then we can start increasing their stiffness a little bit. So you know what, we're just gonna go bam bam, bam bam, bam bam, bam bam. Just leave it like that for now. So, and now the next bit is the travel. So try and limit the travel a little bit. So actually, just to mention what I was talking about with the travel. So if you look here, so the front, can we have them overlaid somewhere? No. But basically, or maybe we can just do this for now temporarily. Overlapped groups. Yeah. So if you look at that, should not happen. Well, conventionally should not happen. So the magenta line is my rear travel. The orange is my front. So there is times where the rear is traveling a bit more than the front. If you just compare the maximum and average values, the front is at 26.5 millimeters, the rear left is at 29.9. So there's only a 3 millimeter difference on average, which is extremely similar, let's say, and kind of, yeah, puzzling the way of it. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to try and work in 10 millimeter increments with the dampers to try and figure out how we can stop this crazy nosedive that happens under braking, which I think is causing that edgy oversteer, or was the primary factor to causing the edgy oversteer. Now, of course, could stiffen the front wheel rates, which is kind of a quick fix. But sort of in a way, I try to adhere to the car's relative wheel rate stiffness. So it was actually 20 between the front and rear. I've narrowed that down to 10. But so it might be better just to stiffen up the front wheel rates, which will guaranteed limit travel. But yeah, I want to experiment a little bit with the bump stops. So this goes from 30 to 70. 54 is the original value, so we're going to actually trim that a bit. And something to note, by the way, this doesn't mean that there's 30 millimeters of front suspension travel. That's not it. It means that the activation point of the packers or the bump stops is at 30 millimeters. So the travel still increases beyond that, just to be aware of that. And we're going to soften the packers to their minimum value so that we still have some sort of give. Move on from there. So now the front end's not gonna dive or hardly dive. How much? Oh, car's wobbling a little. That's riding the bump stops. Yep, that's riding the bump stops. So this is inspired by actually ACC, this approach. So in ACC, you really use the bump stops to control the pitch and the squat of the rear end of the car. So the car is going to naturally kind of feel a bit maybe understeery now. Yeah, it doesn't want to pitch as much, which isn't a problem. But at the same time, we don't want it to understeer out of corners completely. Oh, that was violent. That curb was violent at the apex. Yeah, I can definitely, nice thing about, I can definitely feel front end doesn't pitch as much now, and it just gives me that confidence, just go really attack quite hard into the corner, especially the higher speed corners, without fear of getting the rear end all crossed up. Kinda messed up this lap, so we'll do one more and then look at the travel. Oh. Alright, so go back to the pits and have a quick look again. And look how much we reduced the travel by, if we did it all. So it's definitely gone down. Not much though. So this is the bit where we say stiffen the packers. So, and yeah, it's likely to have had an influence, yes, on the bump setting of the rear of the front of the car. I believe it's influenced the histogram a little bit, which is why I kind of said that I'd like to try and make sure my dampers are kind of matched as they should be before messing about with the packers. So roughly, that's actually something that's quite interesting that came about now. So we'll just save that as V5. The amount of travel is roughly the same as it was before. So we're going to put the packers up to where they were, but leave the limitation in travel. And see, I think this should decrease it by 5. I think it should be 5 millimeters, roughly. do one more lap and then have a look at how much we've decreased the front travel by. Just to give you some idea, so the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 has usually around 30 millimeters of travel at the front, and about 50 to 60 at the rear. So that's why you have that sort of. That's why I was a little bit amazed just looking at the Porsche having the same amount of front to rear travel. Now, there may, of course, be a very good reason why it's like that, but trying to be a bit more conventional in my approach might be the wrong way, but we'll see. Alright. Let's see how much the travel's decreased by, and then hopefully we can get sort of an idea of... oh, sorry. You could just see telemetry for that run. So apologies for that. Now we do want to look at the telemetry. So trying to see here. So the travel actually hasn't changed on average, I think, throughout the lap. Yeah, it's pretty much the same. Lines are a little bit smoother at the front. So then the other route is stiffer wheel rates. I think. So we could stiffen the front wheel rates, which is, like I said, a quick fix for the whole thing. Let's just try one more time with the Packers, see what we end up with. back to the pits. And see how much the travel's decreased by. And then probably call it tonight at that point. So it's pretty late here. So let's see. So the travel is decreased a little bit. Not very much, but a little bit. So that's one way of doing it. So if we compare that to, let's see, where's that run? Where it was, yeah. This was a run without, I think, yeah. So the front end particularly, you just see under braking? Not really, actually. There is some differences here and there, but not very much. So you know what? We're gonna forget about the bump stops and just use wheel rates. So go 20. I'll go 10. And then stiffen that a click, 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 and that a click. So I really don't actually mess around with the rear of the car because the diffuser is just right now. Now the car should feel different again from how it felt before. This time we have a little bit more give at the front end overall, or at least I think we do, than riding bump stops. Yeah, car is definitely, in the slower, you'll definitely notice that in the slower speed stuff the bump stops actually hinder you. So there is a price to pay for riding bump stops, but the question is, it's all about how much do you lose and how much do you gain in the higher speed corners. So it's kind of a balancing act. So probably a track with a lot of high speed corners, which I suppose Red Bull Ring is actually kind of that way for the most part, particularly the last sector. Riding the bump stops isn't so bad because you have plenty of front aero kicking in. But in the slower speed corners, not so good, like turn 1 and turn 2. Particularly turn 2 and 3. So now, getting to that point where losing grip, front end grip, the stiffer front suspension. So yeah, actually, yeah. So the stiffer front wheel rates had, I think, a greater influence than really the travel had. So there you go. So now then, of course the histogram now, the stiffer front suspension has gone all whack. Nice, very nice. Not good, not good, not good, not good. So we go. Yeah. So we'll go with, stick with what we had before. Stiffen up the roll bar. And I'm gonna put up that click. And that a click. Move that back a little more. So now we start messing around with the arrow. And see how far we can go, basically. Probably need a little bit more front arrow. So what I'm running might work for Monza, but I don't think for Red Bull Ring. So this part here, and then the straight just after it is what we'll see the most gain in the lower arrow. Now this is where we'll start losing time, because this is where the arrow is kind of important. Yep. Go back to the pits. A bit more aero. And a bit more diff. Ah, man. So close. So close. So let's actually try going the other way. It's probably the wrong way, but we'll see. So yeah, I don't think this way will work with the arrow. We'll try one more configuration and then leave it there. So 3.6, and then see. Alright, so 3.6 felt okay, but I actually think probably overall the kind of time you might gain or speed you might gain, it's not really worth it. So I'm gonna run with 4.7 for now. 5.8 is too much. It's a bit too much. So yeah. I have one last look at the telemetry from that last run. So I did improve on my lap time with that last run, but I really don't think it was aero that helped. I just drove a little bit better on that lap compared to my last best. So damper wise, rear is okay, front is kind of okay. Yeah, there's asymmetrical issue with the front dampers, so that might need a little bit more tuning. Shape wise, rear could probably be stiffer than what it is right now, so might have to adjust that. But yeah, I'm going to end it there. So for anyone who tuned in, I hope you learned something with this stream. Main idea was hopefully, I don't really like mindlessly streaming. I like to stream, and hopefully anyone who's watching, can learn something about setup or telemetry, that kind of stuff. So if you're curious to know what software I'm using, it's just simply 3 programs, which is the ACTI app, or the Assetto Corsa telemetry interface. So it has a little logger that comes with it. Motec as well. So Motec for looking at the data. So you need a logger, which you run in Assetto Corsa, and then you can open Motec, which is a separate piece of software, to look at your telemetry. So it's very handy, very useful for trying to figure out bits of information about what the car is doing, and sometimes it can help very much speed up certain setup developments like tire pressures, ride height, things like that. But also it's good for troubleshooting issues with car setup, provided you have some understanding. Like, I will say that if you have zero understanding of mechanics and how suspension works, definitely go read a setup guide, a proper in-depth setup guide if possible. There's a very good one that was done for Live for Speed that I've read before. It kind of goes into what happens in different transitions with the car, so you can get a good grasp or a good idea of how everything works together, particularly in the suspension. And then with that, then you can hopefully be able to understand the graphs a bit better. So yeah, so basically, yeah, that's it. So that's what I use. I have my own little project, but the ACTI interface comes with its own project as well, to kind of get you started off. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I will post the setup I have. Well, reluctantly, I will post it in the thread. So, but it's okay. No, well, not reluctantly. It's no problem. It's only a casual race, so why not? Why not? So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the stream. For any new viewers, if you'd like to follow me for my future streams, I play other games sometimes, but yeah, there's other, mainly sim racing, of course. That's my main thing. So if you'd like to see more, you can follow me on Twitch. I also have a YouTube channel where I post much more succinct content, more useful, maybe more entertaining. Not as long for sure than as a stream. So yeah, we also have a Discord channel where we race sometimes. I haven't been racing a lot over the last while, simply because of studies. So I'm back at college / university, and I'm in my final year, so it's quite busy. So I only really get to race at the weekend, and there's going to be a period of time where it's unlikely I'll even get to race then. So in maybe a few weeks' time. But anyway, enjoy it while I can for now before things get a bit tougher. And yeah, I'll catch you guys again soon. Bye bye.